I'm here in Paso Robles, California. I'm at my father-in-law's house, and this is our job site for the next few days. Pretty much gonna be building a shade structure here. I don't have a whole lot of blueprint or plans. I didn't do any SketchUp drawings or anything like that. All I've got is drawings from my father-in-law, and sometimes those get interesting. So let me grab the camera real quick, and I'm gonna show you kind of how we're gonna go about it, or at least how I think we're gonna go about it, where we're gonna be attaching things, and all of that good stuff. So back here in this back patio area, it's all concrete pretty much, but right along this area, we've got some concrete anchors and some post bases, and we're gonna be drilling into the concrete there and mounting them. And so once those are anchored in, the posts will come up, and they're gonna come across, and we're gonna use some other lumber to attach over on this side. So right or wrong, this is how it's getting done, and I think it'll be an interesting week.
Before I got into town, Pop already had some of the boards painted. These are some boards we'll be attaching to the fascia, and also some 6x6s that we're going to be using for the posts. We're going to be using these post bases from Simpson. The style of these bases works really well with the overall style of this house, and I think they're going to look great on these big chunky 6x6 posts. But first things first, we need to measure out spacing for these posts.
So we figured out we're putting these things about 10 feet, well not about 10 feet, exactly 10 feet apart. So we got our measurements, and what's next?
We need to outline these posts and then make the hole, mark the hole so we can drill out the 5/8 inch bolts for the anchors. I'm thinking we should use a drill.
What kind of drill?
One with a bit in it. Should be a masonry hammer drill bit. A hammer drill bit.
You know anybody that has one?
You know what? My son-in-law has one, but he's in San Diego. The old man next door, he's in his 90s. I think he has one, but it's from 1932, so it might not work.
Well, I'll check with your son-in-law and see if he can bring his rigid one.
I recently picked up this rigid hammer drill. I've only used it a couple of times so far, but I really dig it. We're using a 5/8 inch concrete and rebar bit for this hole, and this SDS Plus connection is how it locks into the drill. The hammer drill and bit made quick work of that, and we even cut through some rebar pretty easily. And then I like to use compressed air to clean out the holes.
So these are the anchor bolts that we're gonna put into these base plates here. These things are huge, and these threads, they cut the concrete as they go down into the hole, and the head on this is actually a whopping 15/16 inch. So we've got the right socket size for that, and we're just gonna throw that into the hammer drill as well.
Here's the 15/16 socket. Here's a 1/2 inch to 3/8 to hex adapter so that it fits in any chuck on any drill. And this is a chuck that allows you to use any regular drill bit, and on the other end of it is an SDS Plus connection, and that way I can use it in the hammer drill. I figured I would just use this setup to drive those big concrete anchor bolts with ease, but to my dismay, it wasn't working like I thought it would. I switched the drill from hammer mode to drill mode, but no luck. And so I switched it back to hammer mode, still no luck. I put in a fresh battery, and still no luck. So we decided to just try it by hand, and guess what? That was the way to go.
Doing it by hand was the way to go.
With the bases in place, we could bring the extra fascia boards back and get those attached. The plan without a plan was to attach the additional fascia boards to the backside of the existing fascia boards.
It looks pretty even.
This left us with a stepped fascia in the front, but that got filled in with an additional 2x4. Again, this is the plan without really having a plan, so
Right or wrong, this is how it's getting done.
while I was in the back doing my thing, Pop was out front doing his. Ooh, I'm painting these boards. My name is Ray and I like to paint.
It's a different day, but I got the same clothes. But we're gonna keep working just as hard as we did on the first day, which was yesterday.
The next thing we need to do is get the first 6x6 post in place, and that way we can use it to make a couple marks and help us prep for some upcoming steps. We got the post plumb, and I'm just using some deck screws and washers to temporarily hold the post in place. These will get swapped out a little later. This is the first 2x8 board that we'll attach between the post and the fascia. And this is a piece of scrap attached to the 2x8 so we can clamp this into the fascia while we do some other stuff. We adjust this board to get it level, and then clamp the end at the post. Now I can make a couple marks, one of which is where I'm going to cut the 2x8 to length. One of my other marks was where I needed to cut the 6x6 post. And even with the circular saw blade depth maxed out, the cut wasn't quite deep enough to make it all the way through. I forgot to bring my own pull saw on this trip, but Pop had these gems that he got from a bargain bin at an estate sale, so I gave one of them a try. Not bad for $1. Then Pop went ahead and cleaned up the end with a rasp. Kinda.
Almost as smooth as your butt on a Sunday morning with baby powder.
We're going to be cutting some rabbets on the post, so I used a piece of scrap 2x8 to set the depth of my saw blade, and I started making a bunch of kerf cuts about 1/4 inch apart. Next, I can knock away all the thin pieces, and I was hoping I'd get a cleaner break, but the wood was like,
Haha, in your dreams, pal.
so I had to clean it up some with a chisel. Luckily, the next rabbet we did came out a lot cleaner. You can see the difference in side 1 versus side 2. And you can see how that 2x8 is going to fit on there nice and flush. Then Pop slapped some more paint. With those steps out of the way, we can put the post in place for good. And instead of reusing the deck screws and washers we had before, this time we're going to use these structural screws from Simpson. We're also pairing them with these beefy hex head washers. This combination is meant to be used with those Simpson bases that I showed you earlier. These hex head washers have this little lip that fits perfectly into the holes in those bases. We'll also be using more of these later on. I cut these new spacer pieces and used one of them to replace a temporary spacer that I used earlier. Now we can replumb, realign, and re-level all these pieces and make the final connections permanent. Now that we'd gotten the first one figured out, all the other ones seemed to go easier and a bit quicker, which was good because I was heading home in a couple of days and there was no time to dilly-dally. After shooting the shot you're seeing now, we decided to add another board in the middle of each section running from the house fascia over to the front of the new structure. That's going to act as an additional point of contact for the upcoming slats to keep them from bowing over time, we hope. The next step of the plan without a plan was to figure out the spacing of the slats that would run across the top, so we laid out a bunch of them for visual reference. Pop chose to use 2x4s for the slats, so he and his wife just needed to decide whether they wanted 1-inch spacing, 1.5 inch spacing,
2-inch spacing, 2.5 inch spacing, 3-inch spacing, 3.5 inch spacing, 4-inch spacing, 4.5 inch spacing.
They landed on 2-inch spacing, and with that, it was time for some father-daughter bonding while Pop and Des paint.
So I woke up today, getting dressed, and I was kind of sore and I was wondering what's going on. Then I realized I got these bruises on my legs. What the heck? Apparently I bruise easily now. I think it's from the ladder and going up and down and the way I was using the ladder. So I don't know, just call me an old man. But nevertheless, we got to keep moving on this project. So we're at the home stretch of this project, and the last thing that we need to do is attach some of these decorative elements. And again, we're gonna be using some of these Simpson brand accoutrements, if you will. They're just kind of decorative. They do serve a little bit of structural support probably, but that's not what we're using them for. We're just using them for looks. So they look like this. We've got some that are shaped like a T, and those are gonna go where a T would go. And we've got some that are shaped like an L, and these are gonna go in corners where something like an L would go. And there's also something like this, which is gonna be for inside corners, which we'll do in the inside corners. And just like with the bases, we're gonna be using these things here. So the long screw goes into this faux nut thing, gives it a nice bulky look. And for some of these, however, we had to cut down these screws so that they were shorter. Otherwise, they would go through the 2x lumber. So, little modification here and there, but the end is near, my friends.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, you're my favorite son-in-law.
Oh, good, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, we got this one finished up. How long have you been waiting for this one?
15 years.
It's only been 15 years for us to get this project done. But now that it's done, what do you think?
You know what? It's fantastic.
Was it worth the wait?
It was worth the wait and more. I could have waited another 20 years for this.
All right, I'll keep that in mind for the next project. Anyways, let me show you some shots of the finished project, and we're out. Let's go.
Okay.